Hello and a very warm welcome to the European Parliament in Brussels for this edition of Talking Europe. France will soon have a new president, and it could be either a man who is unapologetically pro the EU and wants more integration of the bloc, or it could be a woman who says she wants to free France from the shackles of globalisation and the bullying of Brussels. Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen face off in the second round on May 7th. Today, we're going to look at what kind of impact a Macron or a Le Pen presidency could have on the EU. Would a win for Marine Le Pen automatically lead to a Frexit, an exit of France from the bloc, and possibly the end of the EU altogether? Would Macron manage to carry out any of the reforms he says the EU needs? Well, I'm joined by guests to give me the EU view. I have German MEP Inge Grässle from the European People's Party. Across the other side of the table, a Spanish MEP Juan López Aguilar, Socialists and Democrats here in Brussels. And beside you, I have Polish MEP Ryszard Czarnecki with the Conservatives and Reformers. Going to be asking you questions on both of those candidates in just a few moments, but we're going to begin with a very broad view of what they both think of the EU and their plans for it.
Two diametrically opposed views on Europe. Emmanuel Macron is staunchly pro-EU, while Marine Le Pen has long run on an anti-Brussels platform, one she reiterated Sunday night. She believes the Eurozone has weakened France's economy. She also said Europe's lack of internal borders has given free rein to terrorists.
We could continue on the path of complete deregulation without borders and protection, or you could choose France, with borders that protect our jobs and our purchasing power, our security and our national identity.
The National Front candidate wants to get rid of the Schengen zone, scrap the euro currency, and for French citizens to vote in a referendum over whether to stay in Europe or not. Emmanuel Macron, on the other hand, has said the 28-member bloc needs to evolve, but that France's future goes hand in hand with Europe's.
We're in favour of renewing the spirit of politics, of increasing security, freeing up the labour market, jump-starting schools, so that everyone, no matter where they come from, can move forward. And we're also for restarting European integration.
Macron has proposed that all EU nations debate key issues and hold votes on them, without going into detail on how that would actually work. He also wants there to be a budget for the Eurozone, with its own finance minister, a body that would establish common core social benefits. Macron also wants 200,000 French students to study abroad by 2022, a vision that's far from Marine Le Pen's. Macron has said of France, quote, "We are Europe, and Europe makes us stronger."
Okay, well, there you hear the very broad brushstrokes of how they both see the EU. Ms. Grässle, though, how much do you think this is their true views, or how much of this is campaign tactics?
I think a lot is campaign tactics. There are points which cannot be implemented, neither by one candidate nor by all others. I think the French would have merited to have a real true view on the European Union and what is feasible and what is not feasible. France is not alone. We are 28.
Because when we look at Marine Le Pen, for example, her party has always been anti the EU. Now, even since the first round voting, we're hearing somewhat of a softening of stance. She's saying she's not anti-European. She wants to possibly renegotiate France's relationship with the EU, something that we saw David Cameron try to do from the UK. Mr. López Aguilar, do you think that's possible? Is there a room for change with the French-EU relationship?
As to candidate Macron, the chapter of history is yet to be written. But as to candidate Le Pen, no mistake. We can make no mistake. She may indulge into campaign tactics, but we know her only too well here in the European Parliament. She's against everything moving. She's against the very European idea. And she's threatening explicitly about Frexit for all too long. So there's no mystery about it. She is against the euro, she's against the European Union, she's against the European polity, she's against the European identity. She wants a national regression which leads France nowhere.
Mr. Czarnecki, how does your country see a Le Pen presidency? Indeed, she's definitely the nationalist candidate in this race, wanting to bring more power back to France and away from the EU, which on a lot of issues is what Poland is also calling for.
Well, from my perspective, frankly speaking, we need united Europe because for geopolitical reasons, we won't be the member of a really strong European Union. And I hope that after second round of this presidential election, France will be active member of the European Union and also it's not less important, frankly, France will be also a very important part of NATO treaty. For us, truly speaking, we have fears after the statements of Madame Le Pen about
how she wants to overhaul
the very skeptical statement to NATO. It's not acceptable for us, but obviously we respect every decision of French nation.
Ms. Grassler, indeed, a candidate for French president that wants France for the French, if she's elected, is it automatically a problem for the EU?
It is a problem because she will throw a lot of sand. She will try to disturb the cooperation. She disturbs freedom and she disturbs peace in Europe. This is a lot for the European Union. The European Union tends to be very fragile, and we need member states who want to cooperate. And a big member state like France who does not want to cooperate and to fit in the community with others, this is a real problem for us all.
At the same time, we're seeing across the EU voters turning out and supporting nationalist parties more and more. So there's clearly a massive problem with how the EU works and how it's seen as not working for constituents across the bloc. What's being done to it?
Absolutely. The European Union has been enduring too many problems for all too long. Lots of problems. But of course, there is populism on the rise. There is nationalism on the rise.
So
and there is a combination. There is a combination of populism and nationalism with the extreme right, which is the case of Marine Le Pen. So it's a threat. It's a threat for the European Union in diversity, because, for one thing, just for a start, she's a threat for French diversity in itself.
Mr. Czarnecki.
Well, I think it's a little bit more sophisticated than my colleagues told, because more than 40% of French voters support two very EU-skeptical candidates. Madame Le Pen is far right, but Monsieur Mélenchon is far left.
Jean-Luc Mélenchon was also quite anti-EU in the end.
Well, look for the presidential election in Austria 4 months ago. Almost 50% support anti-EU candidate. It's not the
problem. We've seen Brexit, and we've seen the Netherlands as well.
We should not forget that those parties, Mélenchon, Le Pen, Front National, they are very provincial. They try to convince people that they can live in alone without the others. They lie to people because they tend to tell people that they do not live in a highly globalized and integrated world economy. And this is the case. That's why we need to discuss what is economy today. We saw it that French people are aware of the economic situation. We need a government in France which acts, which does improve the economic situation.
And will Emmanuel Macron be that president should he win? He has said, you know, he's very pro the EU and he wants to stay in the Eurozone, but he wants to see massive reforms. He wants a finance minister put in place. He wants a budget put in place. Is that the solution, and is that likely to happen?
Of course not, because he needs to pick up and to take up national measures. He has a lot in his hands on a national level. If now he says, I can only have success if Europe does this and that and that, this is the false way, because this will not happen.
At the same time, the EU is only going to have success if it changes at this stage. Is that not true?
Of course, but the French need to be strong. France needs to be strong. This means economic reforms. This means they have to care about their economy in their own country, and for that they have all sovereignty themselves.
But the economy as well, is that not why we're all together in the EU, is to have especially the Eurozone, the 19 countries of the Eurozone? Is it also about the economy? And do you not think that perhaps part of the appeal, nationalists, Marine Le Pen's party is really most supported in regions where unemployment is 20%, where the factories, because of globalisation, have moved elsewhere? Is it not a valid point, and does the Eurozone not need to be overhauled?
Of course it is a valid point. I am not here to make the case for Emmanuel Macron, not for any other candidate. But I'm here to state clearly that globalization is not a religion. Globalization is not an ideology. Globalization cannot be fought simply with the denial of globalization. It's not a matter of prejudice. It's a matter of facts. So we need a strategy and we need a common response. We need globally relevant regional actors. And that is the scale of Europe. And Europe needs France within. It has been there ever since it got started 60 years ago, as we commemorated, not that far away. So we need France to remain European, truly European, devoted to the European build-up, precisely to respond to the challenges of globalization.
Well, I don't want to comment. I cannot comment the internal situation in France. But from my perspective, Mr. Macron is more realistic. His attitude to NATO, his attitude to Russia is more realistic than Madame Le Pen. It's frankly more important for me. Obviously, I think for me and for my party is a little bit more pro-federalistic. But we can discuss about our European future, and obviously next president of France will be the very good partner for this debate.
One element that has become quite a big part of this debate is this issue of the Franco-German relationship and partnership within the EU. Emmanuel Macron presenting himself as the guarantor of this relationship. Marine Le Pen saying, you know, one of her problems with the EU is that basically she would be the vice-chancellor of Germany. Can you, Ms. Grassle, tell me what exactly does that consist of, that Franco-German relationship? Because it has been historically there since the Élysée Treaty back in 1963, when they basically, you know, both countries decided when it's better for the EU, they will do everything to compromise. And what, like it or not, Germany is the powerhouse, France is still the big country. It's still really the nucleus of the EU and really the basis of a lot of decisions.
Absolutely. And Germany is willing to go ahead with France to take common decisions on which future of Europe. What is the way forward to suggest to all others? And there's a strong relationship with Poland as well. You know, at least some countries need to go ahead and to develop ideas and to try to make those ideas workable, whatever it is. And that's the importance of the Franco-German relationship, that two countries, two big countries, go ahead with ideas and with new ideas which do not overstretch the countries.
Is that not frustrating or unfair on other countries?
Absolutely, I do agree. I mean, France and Germany were foes for long in history. At a certain point of time, reconciliation of France and Germany was crucial for the European idea. And it made sense, but it doesn't suffice anymore. It takes more than Germany and France. And besides, Germany and France France's bilateral relationship has been somehow deteriorating for the past few years. It's not only Germany's fault, it has also been France missing for some time. But the point is now that it takes a regional approach to the whole of the European idea. Just let me tell you, when it got started some 60 years ago, Paul Henri Spaak was one of the founders, Prime Minister of Belgium. He said, it is not true that there are big countries funding the European communities, namely Italy, France and Germany, and little countries, small countries like the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg. We're all small. Only some of us do know, and some others have not realized yet they're too small to face the global challenges. Very briefly,
Ms. Grasse said everybody is welcome. Is that the impression you have, that, you know, it is open to all? It's not a nucleus of France and Germany deciding together in their room?
Well, you remember probably very well Merkozy, the tandem Merkel-Sarkozy, and later Merkel-Hollande, tandem Merkel-Hollande. Maybe now it's time for Macron. But I hope, I'm almost sure that the Weimar Triangle, the cooperation in the triangle between France, Germany and Poland will exist more intensive.
Okay, and you think perhaps that idea of integration for those who want to move forward and those who don't to stay in a larger EU, do you think that's actually where the EU is going?
You know, imagine the nightmare when you have 28 or 27 people around the table, everybody speaks in another direction. We want to have common progress with everybody. Somebody needs to start, and this was always the sense of the Franco-German couple, that we try to start a way for all others, not instead, but for all others. This was always the line and the way, and nobody should be jealous, because it is a decision of us all, and everybody is on the same level important.
Okay, so the proposal, a starting block. Very brief.
Obviously, I respect the political facts and the idea of Franco-German leadership, but I hope that your states also will respect the point of view and rights of other nations in the EU, I hope.
I regretted when the President of the Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, presented his so-called white paper with a variety of options. I am a federalist, I myself, but I'm ready to work with enhanced cooperation, namely flexible Europe. Some call it double-speed Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an arguable terminology. But the fact is that Europe now needs a way through. And if 28 or 27 anytime soon are not ready to cooperate in a united direction, it takes some kind of a leadership within the European Union, within the European process. I don't think it suffices Franco-Germany vicinity, but it takes more than that to create an inner circle of European momentum and true European leadership.
Move forward. Very briefly, very briefly, because you happen to mention that the 28 to 27, would either of the French candidates for president have an impact on the Brexit negotiations? Would Emmanuel Macron make things harder or easier for the UK? He's always said he'd go for a harsh Brexit.
Reason will come up everywhere. We need a close relationship to UK, not only for trade reasons, but for plenty of other reasons. That's why I think after the first problems, we will have a better cooperation than what we see now.
The way I see it, Marine Le Pen has made a bet. The worse, the better for her and for her policies. That's not my line. So, I mean, I don't think that if Brexit is the worst choice possible, that it'll be better for the European implosion she's longing for. So I would think that it'll be better for the European management of the whole challenge that Macron takes the lead.
Okay.
The victory of Monsieur Macron means no change in these negotiations. A victory of Madame Le Pen means a breaking point in these negotiations.
OK, will be an interesting one to watch for sure. Thanks so much for all your insights on that. And thanks also, of course, to you at home for having watched. That brings us to the end of this half of Talking Europe. Join us again after the news for more. See you then.